Good morning, everybody. Today is Saturday, October the 15th. This is Sean Copeland, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Kingdom Driven CEO. Today on the Kingdom Driven CEO, we are going to talk about what your identity is based upon. And this is based upon a devotional that I shared earlier in the week. I think I've mentioned this before, but if any of you are interested, we have a daily devotional call. It's from 8:17 to 8:30 every day, Central Standard Time. The phone number is 888-630-4807, and you are welcome to call any day. We also have them recorded on our website at regent.bank under the resources tab if you want to go back and listen to them. But on the 12th, we had a devotional that really touched me, and I wanted to share it with you today because I think as kingdom-driven leaders, it is so important that we understand where our value comes from. And the reason is because when we feel valued and when we are self-confident and when we love ourselves, we will be better leaders. We will make better decisions. We won't do things just to be liked and accepted. We will do the right things. And so let me start by reading the actual devotional portion, and then I'll jump into some thoughts. Beware of seeing yourself through other people's eyes. There are several dangers to this practice. First of all, it's nearly impossible to discern what others actually think of you. Moreover, their views of you are variable, subject to each viewer's spiritual, emotional, and physical condition. The major problem with letting others define you is that it borders on idolatry. Your concern to please others dampens your desire to please me, your Creator. This is obviously God speaking. It is much more real to see yourself through my eyes. My gaze upon you is steady and sure, untainted by sin. Through my eyes you can see yourself as one who is deeply, eternally loved. Rest in my loving gaze and you will receive deep peace. Respond to my loving presence by worshiping me in spirit and in truth. So what we're going to talk about today is, what is our identity based upon? Is it based upon pleasing others, or is it based upon pleasing God? And we want to be very careful, as it says, of trying to see ourselves through other people's eyes, because they're looking through their own lens of issues. One of my favorite stories about this is there was a couple. They lived in a neighborhood, and they would look out their window. They had a big pane window in the back of their house, and they would look at the neighbor's clothesline. This was back when, like, my grandma used to put the clothes out on the clothesline to dry. She'd hang them up, and they would air dry out there. And so they would look out, and the wife every day would complain that the neighbor's clothes were dingy. She would always say, look how brown they are. Man, don't they understand the use of bleach? You know, they need to learn how to wash their clothes and make them white. And then one day they woke up, they were grabbing their morning coffee, and she looked out and goes, oh my goodness, they finally figured it out. The clothes are finally white. And the husband said, no, the clothes are the same. I just finally got around to washing our windows. So what happened is they were looking through the wrong lens. Their lens was dirty, so they were seeing dingy clothes instead of white clothes, and that's what happens with us. We become so preoccupied with wanting others' approval that it changes who we are and how we act and what we do. But in reality, other people are looking through their own lens, and we do the same thing. And God even goes so far here as to say wanting others' approval is actually bordering on idolatry. One of the things that we know is that as leaders, we're not going to please everybody all the time. We need to focus on God's direction, obeying God's directing for us, and not focus on what other people think, because they're coming at it through their own lens. And let me tell you a couple of funny stories along these lines. We have a couple of friends on my son's Little League team, and we were at practice earlier this year, and they come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Finley's my son." They said, "Finn, your dad is so rich and so famous." And Finn was like, "Well, that's news to me. I didn't realize we were rich." And I've explained to them all that the money that is in the bank, everybody thinks it's our money. It's not our money. It's other people's money. It's just coming through the bank. That's like our inventory. But anyway, they still have this perspective that we are super rich. But Finn said, "Well, why do you guys say that? Why do you guys say my dad is rich and famous?" And they said, "Because we see him on billboards all the time." So we do marketing where we highlight certain bankers, and for a couple of weeks I had actually been on the billboards, and so they thought I was super rich and super famous because I was on billboards. Well, I explained to them that they could be on billboards. All you have to do is pay the monthly fee to go on the billboard. That has nothing to do with being rich or being famous whatsoever. Now, on the flip side, my kids wanted to go to a football game recently at Metro Christian, and Angela and I were talking about going as well, and you would have thought they were mortified. It was like they did not want us at the game. That was not cool. If we went to the game, we had to sit far, far away from them. So now at the other end of the spectrum, I'm not cool. One group thinks I'm rich and famous. The other group doesn't even want to be around me. And then that group, my kids changed their tune whenever we were able to score really good tickets, like at OSU football games. So we get sweet tickets and get to sit up there where there's good food and air conditioning and comfortable seating. And then they love me. They want me. They think I'm the coolest thing ever when I land those tickets. So that's kind of like our life. We go back and forth between being popular and unpopular. And if that is the basis for our identity, we are going to not have a good self-worth. We're going to constantly be up and down in how we feel about ourselves. My friends Michael Rogers and Brian Bingman, when I was on the cabinet for the governor, they said, "You guys are going to be amazed at how many good friends you pick up here in your service to the governor, because they perceive that you can help them get state funding, you can help them get a meeting with the governor, and the only reason they want to meet with the governor is so the governor can help them push something forward politically or funding-wise. But whenever you leave, your phone is going to become amazingly quiet." And sure enough, it's pretty amazing how many best friends I had when I was Secretary of Commerce, and I don't have them anymore. So that's kind of how people are. Their views of us are often inaccurate, both ways. They think we're a bigger deal than we are, or they don't like us for reasons that aren't even accurate. And they're often, their value of us is based upon how we can help them. That's why you see so many rich people and famous people struggle, because I think they realize that these relationships are very fickle and not real. The one thing that is real is our relationship with God. And I want to talk about that, but first I want to explain to you how when God looks at us, he sees the truth. Okay? And I don't mean the truth in terms of all of the mistakes that we have made and the sins that we have made, because we've all done that, but he sees our heart. And look all throughout the Bible. Everybody said that David was too small, but God saw a hero. Everybody said Moses couldn't talk right because he stuttered, but God saw a leader. Everybody said Paul was a Christian killer, but he saw somebody that could change the world for him and bring his word to the Gentiles. Everybody saw Matthew as a dirty tax collector, but he saw him as an amazing disciple. They thought Noah was outright crazy. They thought Gideon was a weakling, but that is not what God saw. God saw Noah as a tremendous servant who was willing to put in an unbelievable amount of time to build a boat when it hadn't even rained yet. He saw Gideon as a tremendous warrior that could lead battles when everybody else saw him as weak and frail. God doesn't care what other people say about you, and He doesn't care what other people think about you. He knows you, and He knows your heart. Let's think about this. If people listened to what others said, Abraham Lincoln would have never been president. In business, Lincoln failed twice. He went bankrupt twice. As a politician, he lost 8 elections before being named president. Henry Ford's business failed 5 times before he sold his first automobile. Colonel Sanders' secret recipe was rejected 1,009 times before a restaurant accepted it. Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Albert Einstein was expelled from school and not accepted to college. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Oprah Winfrey was fired as a TV reporter because she was unfit for TV. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, suffered with severe depression and lived on welfare for years before her books became popular. Winston Churchill failed the 6th grade. The pioneer woman, Ree Drummond, she started blogging back in 2006, and it took 15 years for her to achieve tremendous popularity, but she just stayed at it. So we cannot be focused on what others think about us. We have to focus on what God thinks about us. Comparison can be the thief of all joy. The grass is always greener where you water it. We need to play the long game. We need to use the talent that we have been given and not focus on others. It's almost like a racehorse. Whenever they come out of the gate, they have these blinders on where they can only see forward, because when you're looking around, you tend to swerve into the other person's lane and have a wreck. I remember back when we purchased Regent Bank in 2007, 2008, everybody made fun of me. I was too young. I wasn't a real banker. I wasn't a credit guy. I was just a marketer. This was a bad bank. We were going to go under. And honestly, it cost us a bunch of investors. People listened to that and walked away. It really, really hurt my feelings, but I stuck with it and have proven, that we do have a wonderful organization, but it's because of God. It's not because of yours truly. Those people were competitors. They didn't want me in the market, and so they were going to say whatever it took to discredit me. This still happens today, but I've learned to ignore it and just run my race and listen to God. I've had some pretty awful things said about me, both personally and professionally. I'm a pleaser by nature. I've always wanted everybody to like me. And then one day, I was in a coffee meeting with my friend Stephen, and he said, I was kind of going through what all I was working on and how, I wanted to make these various groups happy. And he said, Sean, when are you going to get to a point where you're just happy with yourself? You stop striving. All I hear is how you're trying to make everybody happy all the time. I think you've done a great job. I think it's time that you just focus on God's view of you and not everybody else's. It was really amazing. Our parents' view of us can be inaccurate as well. I've seen people devastated because their parents didn't show them love, or their parents were so critical about them. And you know what? Our parents aren't perfect either. You look back and you think about what all they were dealing with. They're not infallible. They look through the wrong lens as well. Many of our parents want to make us the person that they wish they were, and we need to run our own race and follow, what the giftings that God has given us and follow His plan for our life. Jesus was even the subject of intense criticism. He was criticized by the Pharisees and scribes for disobeying Mosaic law. He was decried in Judaism as a failed Jewish Messiah claimant and a false prophet. Some contemporaries regarded him as delusional, possessed by demons, or even insane, but he knew the Father's guidance and continued on his path. We serve an amazing God. He is perfect, and he loves us perfectly. He knows everything about us, and that is all that matters. In Psalm 139, 1 through 4, I want to close with this. It says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." So this should be the source of our value and self-esteem. Let's stop focusing on pleasing others and focus on pleasing God and being the person that God has created us to be. Albert Pujols, remarkable baseball player, recently retired from the St. Louis Cardinals, said, "If it weren't for Jesus, I would not be where I am today, and my life would be without purpose." I've heard kids say they want to be just like me when they grow up. They should know I want to be just like Jesus. Very, very well said. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Kingdom Driven CEO. I hope this helps you as much as it helped me. We need to be abiding with Jesus daily, listening to his direction and call on our life, following him, and not allow the distraction of what other people think about us to get us out of running our race. We need to run the race that God has called us to run. So have a wonderful week, and I'll be back with you next Saturday.